Hello and welcome to Hughes Reviews, the place for movie views and spoiler clues. This one ain't what you thought it was, folks, so settle in for Yesterday. The movie. The movie yesterday, my review of the movie yesterday, we're not time traveling or... never mind. Imagine modern music without the Beatles. It's a nearly impossible feat. You may as well try and imagine modern theology without Martin Luther, or modern nerd culture without Star Trek and Star Wars. Everyone who has ever sat down to write a song has hoped to pen something with the lasting impact of Let It Be, or with the simple, pure, melancholy beauty of Yesterday. And very few ever will achieve that dream because no one, not anyone else but the Beatles, are the Beatles. But that is the hook of the film, a world without the Beatles. What does that mean for the world of music, and in particular for the one man who does remember the music? Our lead is Himesh Patel playing Jack Malik, a failed singer-songwriter who takes low-rent gigs and gets ignored by the audience except for those few friends who tag along to cheer encouragingly. He has a slew of part-time jobs he's indifferent to and longs for someone to notice him, for someone to discover him. But reality has started to settle in, and despite his manager-slash-best friend Ellie's certainty that one day he'll hit it big, he decides to hang up his guitar and face the facts. One day, Jack wakes up to find out that he is the only person in the entire world who remembers who the Beatles are. Not even the internet has a trace of them. They never wrote a note. But Jack remembers them. What if he published their music? Could it work? Is this his chance to be the rich and famous rock star he always dreamed of being? At first glance, it seems like a hackneyed premise sure to fizzle and fail after the first act. But what plays out is a warm and touching movie with well-fleshed-out characters, delivered with genuine heart, and, of course, a great soundtrack. Patel's Jack struggles with the duality of living a lie and claiming credit for the music, while at the same time reveling in the attention and the applause. When record companies come calling, of course he'll leap at the chance to hobnob with the likes of Ed Sheeran and make a boatload of cash doing what he's always dreamed of. But at what cost? Constantly plagued with a nagging voice telling him he's a fraud, faced with the impersonal greed machine that is the modern music industry, and even facing executives and agents trying to change his, that is, the Beatles, lyrics to make them more modern and cool. He may very well lose sight of what excited him about music in the first place. And all the while he pines for the girl he left behind, the one friend who never let him down and always believed in him, his devoted Ellie. To be sure, this still sounds contrived, right? Call Hallmark, we've got another turd for their movie marathon. But wait, not so fast. Could this movie be good? In spite of initial appearances, Yesterday manages to make the audience care about the protagonist and his plight while asking important questions, both personal and wider in scope. Can you have fame and happiness, or are they mutually exclusive? In a factory-driven modern entertainment industry, can art thrive regardless of brilliance, or is it destined to be bludgeoned to death by the focus group machine? At times, it is a bit of a hammer-fisted commentary on music and Hollywood both, in the same vein as the shots taken at critics in Ratatouille and Birdman. But director Danny Boyle and writers Jack Barth and Richard Curtis have still managed to strike a good balance between schmaltzy and poignant. The premise of the film, well, that's only the framework on which to hang a more personal story. Mary Poppins, after all, wasn't about magic and spectacle. It was about family and realizing that what is most important in life is those you love. The Godfather wasn't about the mob. It was the story of a good man's fall into darkness. And Yesterday isn't just a goofball comedy rom-com thing about a guy taking credit for the music of John, Paul, George, and Ringo. It's a man coming to terms with his dreams not being what he thought they were. He must reevaluate himself. The real shame here is that Yesterday probably won't do too well in the box office for the same reasons that I like it. It's not part of a bigger franchise, there's no sequel bait hinting at an ongoing storyline, and there are no exploding robots or superheroes. And in spite of being a genuinely good film, nobody's gonna nominate this thing for an Oscar. It's not melodramatic enough for the Academy, there's no blatantly obvious social message involved to make giving the director a statue feel like a civil liberties victory, and the making of it isn't gimmicky, like taking 12 years to shoot. And in spite of half the cast having British accents, it's not highbrow enough to nominate. And the Oscars love British accents. Voting for them makes the board feel fancy. It's simply a movie that does its job and delivers its message with enough of a deft touch to not be too obvious. You know, a good movie. Patel as Jack and Lily James as Ellie are more than serviceable in their roles. These are quality actors who turned in alternately moving and sweet performances. They were naturals for the parts. Watching them was like watching real people interact. The supporting cast was equally as believable. Everyone from Jack's parents, played by Mira Sial and Sanjeev Bhaskar, to Jack and Ellie's circle of friends came across as genuine. Joel Fry was so convincing as the ne'er-do-well loser friend Rocky that I began to wonder if he was a friend of the director's who was cast a type. There's over-the-top oddball, and then there's writing that fine line, and Rocky was perfectly balanced. Look, I've known guys like this. Trust me, he's not that far-fetched. In a strange turn of events, Kate McKinnon as the slimy recording agent was the most distracting performance of the bunch, which is weird considering Ed Sheeran is also in it. McKinnon is a high-caliber comedic actress, but something about her performance played as forced, as though she were trying to get the audience to laugh instead of letting the laughs come naturally. A decent performance, but just a little too much on the mugging for attention scale, especially when placed next to the subtlety of the rest of the cast. Ed Sheeran playing Ed Sheeran was fine, but then again, he was playing Ed Sheeran. On the other hand, even though all he had to do was be himself, his performance was oddly uneven. In some scenes, he seemed completely at ease, and we were watching Ed be Ed. But in others, he looked uncomfortable and forced, as though he were playing the part of Ed Sheeran the pop star, and delivering lines that were obviously out of character for his natural rhythms. He seems like a nice guy, but he needs some work if he wants to be an actual actor. Watching Jack try to recreate the songs of the Beatles from memory was its own joyful journey. You may know the song She Loves You, but try and remember the words and the music and the orchestration to Eleanor Rigby. Try that just once. Go ahead. You'll probably find yourself stumped. The music is amazing, but you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who remembers every word and note from A Day in the Life. Watching him try to recreate what we take for granted was like watching a songwriter pen it for himself, and that is the magic of this movie. The realism of the thought processes and the people involved. His love for the music makes us face our love of the music and pulls us deeper into the movie. His struggles with recalling the compositions spark our brain cells to life. And when he triumphs, we are caught between hating him for his fraud and loving him for his vulnerability. It is, to use the overcoined phrase, a love letter to the Beatles and to the artistic act itself. As an aside, one running gag was a little unclear to me. Maybe you guys can clear this up for me. Do certain consumer products only exist because of the Beatles? It may have been the movie's way of saying that it wasn't only the Beatles that went missing from pop culture, but when the movie's main thrust is the disappearance of a particular pop group, and the first other thing that goes missing is another pop group whose claim to fame was mimicking them, I'd think the inference would be that anything else that goes missing is also connected to the missing Beatles. I'm not sure how various carbonated drinks, books, and addictive substances are in any way dependent on the existence of For the Benefit of Mr. Kite, but there you go. Go give it a watch and get back to me with your thoughts. I'd genuinely be interested in your take. Now, I know I don't make recommendations to see movies in the theater very often, but this one is worth the ticket price. It's not a big spectacle like Avengers, but it is the kind of movie I'd like to see made more often. A personal story made from the heart. It's a little shaky at times, but many will find it inspiring. I genuinely hope that Barth, Boyle, and Curtis will get more opportunities for big releases in the future, and that they don't fall prey to the machine they are warning us, and hopefully themselves against, in this movie. That is it tonight for Hughes Reviews. Once again, I would like to thank our wonderful underwriters at Moons of Vega Photography, and as always, happy viewing.